Jason Irving, Manager of National Parks and Protected Area Program. Thanks for speaking with us on Flow.
My pleasure.
Now, the government has announced over the weekend that it's excited about a proposal to World Heritage list some elements of the Flinders Ranges. What parts of the Flinders Ranges are we talking about?
Yeah, thanks for that. We're looking at the northern Flinders Ranges, where a number of properties from Arkaroola, right at the top there, down to Flinders Ranges National Park, and a number of properties in between have evidence of the story that we want to nominate, which is around a particular period in the Earth's history when the dawn of animal life occurred.
Mm-hmm. So there's a geological... Is it geological, or is it more like the Narracourt Caves listing that is current, has been since 1994 when it comes to mammal history? What is the specific focus of that story you referenced?
Yeah, so our story is really between 850 million years ago and 500 million years ago, so quite a lot older than the Narracourt story, where we see three stages in the evolution of life on this planet, which is really those three stages around early complex life around these sponge-like organisms when Arkaroola was in deep water and such like, and then into the Ediacaran period, which a lot of people know about, where we really start to see that first animal life and lots of innovations that we're used to now, like scavenging and eating and moving around that didn't exist before then, and then after that the Cambrian explosion of life, which is where we all come from, and all the plants and animals that we know of all come from the Cambrian. And what makes the Flinders unique is that in the rocks of the Flinders you can see not only those fossils, but you can see what were the climatic and atmospheric conditions like back at that time that enabled life to occur, and that's what you can see there, unlike anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, I see. And so when we see the sort of coverage about the Flinders Ranges and the possibility of World Heritage listing, I know there had been a campaign to get a World Heritage listing for the landscapes of the Adelaide Hills, for instance, but this is very much about what's sort of in the ground or under the ground there rather than maybe the landscapes of the Flinders. Is that right?
It's what we can see on the surface predominantly. So in places like Bratchina Gorge and in Arkaroola and at Nilpena, where the exposure of those rocks and the way that the mountain ranges have tilted and moved and so on enables us to see it right before our eyes. So for visitors, we'll be able to tell that story of glaciers and all different types of events that have happened that are the World Heritage values that we're putting forward. So very much it's what's on the surface in those mountains that people will be able to see and in that World Heritage story.
So there was a site near Maree, I forget the locality, we visited when we were on a four-wheel drive trip, and there's some rocks exposed there on the ground. They form these sort of spiny ridges across the landscape that have got this ripple pattern, quite clearly an oceanic style ripple pattern in them. Those are the kind of examples, I gather, that would be perhaps better protected under World Heritage listing? Yeah,
so the ripple rocks are wherever you see them, quite a lot of places where there's evidence of that past ocean environment. What makes places in the Flinders special is where there was that period when we had the Ediacaran fossils, which is underneath those ripple rocks in a number of locations where those creatures were preserved underneath the ocean. And that's what makes their ripple rocks very special. But you don't see them in very many places, but in the Flinders is where you do.
Is there something the government has stated, probably more broadly than maybe within your portfolio, about the potential economic benefits from, or even just the local benefits of World Heritage listing? You know, is there some value for the local community in this occurring?
Yeah, very much so. So the government's currently investing in the Flinders Ranges National Park and in creating the new Nilpena Ediacaran National Park as part of our World Heritage bid. So there's some improvement to those sites. But also for the region generally, there's the opportunity for how station homestays and other things can benefit from the listing here. So we've got a community reference group which has got quite a broad representation overseeing the nomination. And through that group, we've been doing a lot of thinking about how do we want to encourage people to the region, but also manage increased visitation. And that group's going to be looking at what are the economic opportunities, how can we leverage some increased interest in the region while protecting what people are coming to see. So it's a very, very, very exciting part of the bid is how we can keep people in the Flinders and enable them to continue to diversify their income sources.
When I think of the Narracoorte Caves, that's predominantly underground, whereas what we're talking about here is things that are on the surface or near the surface. I'm thinking about when it comes to development in the district, would there need to be some laws backing up the World Heritage listing when it comes to farming or mining or energy transmission or wind farms or of that sort to prevent losing those sites?
Yeah, so most of the sites that we're nominating are already protected in some form of national park or state heritage area, or like Harkaroola, it's got a special act of parliament that protects it. So those areas are already managed with things like mining and other things have got either excluded or not occurring. But the good thing with this nomination is that for those sites that might be on some of the other properties, as a geological nomination, it can coexist with pastoralism and some of those other uses. So part of our job over the next 12 months in developing the nomination is to work with those landholders and the suite of potential other uses that might occur in the future and see how they can coexist with a World Heritage Area. So we very much see it as an add-on to the suite of economic activity in the region and not an excluding of activity. But there might obviously be some areas where there'll need to be some variations to what's allowed.
Yeah, I imagine, for instance, that ridge that I was talking about, if you wanted to sort of bulldoze that out to make your four-wheel drive vehicles easier to get through, you might run into some obstacles if the listing was enacted into law in a private landholding. Yeah,
that's right. It'll really come down to where are the exact locations of the things that are really special that make it World Heritage on a property, and then what are the activities, development and so forth that can sit around that and not impact upon those values.
Yeah, and to be clear, is there an Aboriginal heritage element to this as well, or there's not anything to do with tradition and folklore around this? It's very much about the evolutionary side of things?
The nomination is as you point out, very much about that geological story and the rise of early animal life. There's absolutely no doubt, though, that the Flinders Ranges are extremely important for the Adnyamathanha people and on a whole host of levels. And so we're absolutely committed to working very closely with them and building their perspectives and stories and law into the nomination. And we'll also be working with Adnyamathanha people on what are those cultural sites within the nomination that can benefit from the protection of World Heritage. So that's a conversation we've already started and will continue over the next 2 years.
Good. I will be interested to track the development of this over those coming years and see if you can get further along in the approval process.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a very, very exciting project and we're really looking forward to working with people over the next couple of years to make it come true.
Thanks, Jason, for speaking with us on Flow.
Thank you.